The grand chandelier bathed the lavish wedding hall in golden light, but the atmosphere felt suffocating. Whispers filled the air, guests exchanging puzzled glances. A wedding without a groom. Everyone was talking about it. Aria Bennett stood alone at the altar, gripping her bouquet so tightly her fingers turned ice cold. This wasn't a dream. This was a sentence. In the front row, Celeste Bennett, her sister, sat with her legs elegantly crossed, showing no sign of sorrow. Celeste was supposed to be the bride today, but when Damien's accident left him in a coma, she had refused. And with the Bennett family on the brink of financial ruin, their parents had pushed Aria to take her place. She glanced around the crowd. Not a single smile in sight. "Aria Bennett, do you take Damien Lancaster as your lawfully wedded husband?" The officiant's voice rang out. Her breath hitched. The words felt foreign, unnatural, like shackles tightening around her. She glanced at the empty space beside her, where a groom should have stood. Her fingers trembled against the cold metal of the ring, and for a fleeting moment, she considered running, but there was nowhere to go, nowhere to escape. She was trapped. Aria looked down at the glittering ring in her trembling hands. The man she was about to marry couldn't even hear her vows. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to speak the words fate had chosen for her. "I do." The scratch of a pen against paper was the only sound in the silent hall. No kiss, no applause, only cold, suffocating silence. Aria stood motionless as the nurse signed the marriage certificate, finalizing a union that only one party was conscious for. Damien Lancaster, her husband in name, lay unmoving in a hospital bed, completely unaware that his life had just changed. After the ceremony, she was taken to the Lancaster estate, a place of unimaginable wealth and power. But it didn't feel like a home. It felt like a gilded cage. As she stepped through the grand entrance, all eyes fell on her. She was not welcome here. Victoria Lancaster, Damien's mother, eyed her coldly. "Remember one thing, Aria," she said, voice soft but sharp as a blade. "You may carry the Lancaster name, but you will never be part of this family." Aria didn't argue. She knew she was nothing more than a pawn in their game. The whispers followed her through the halls. "She's only here for the money, just another gold digger." But Aria didn't care. She wasn't here for love or acceptance. She was here because she had no choice. When she entered her assigned bedroom, she noticed immediately it was far from Damien's. A silent message that, despite their legal bond, they were worlds apart. She stood at the window, staring at the distant city lights. Her life had changed forever, and not in the way she had ever wished for. Aria wasn't an opportunist, nor was she a mindless pawn in the Lancaster family's game. If she had to live in this marriage, she would do it on her own terms. Every morning, she visited Damien in his grand but lifeless room, where the steady beeping of machines was the only sign he was still there. No one besides the doctors and nurses spent time with him. No one truly cared. She sat beside his bed, gently taking his motionless hand. "Good morning, Damien," she whispered, knowing he couldn't hear her. "How are you feeling today?" No response, only silence. But Aria didn't give up. Every day, she read to him, adjusted his pillows, ensured the nurses followed the correct procedures. She brought fresh flowers into his room, trying to make it feel less like a tomb. At first, the household staff scoffed at her, but slowly, the whispers began to change. "I thought she was just here for the money, but she actually takes care of him. Maybe she's not as heartless as we assumed." One evening, while searching for a book in the mansion's vast library, Aria stumbled upon a locked drawer in Damien's study. Curious, she searched for a key but found nothing. Instinct told her something important was hidden inside. After a moment of hesitation, she used a hairpin to pick the lock. The drawer slid open, revealing a thick folder. It was an investigative report on Damien's accident. A report that the Lancaster family had commissioned from a private investigator shortly after the incident. As she flipped through the pages, her breath caught in her throat. The crash hadn't been an accident. The records showed Damien's brakes had been deliberately tampered with. And the worst part? The Lancaster family had covered it up. Why? Who was hiding the truth? And more importantly, Who had tried to kill her husband? Arya couldn't sleep. After discovering the investigative report, questions consumed her mind. If the Lancaster family had known the truth from the start, why hadn't they done anything? Who was behind the accident? And why did they want Damien dead? She sat beside Damien's bed, gazing at his peaceful but lifeless face. "Who did this to you?" she whispered. She didn't expect an answer, but at that moment, his finger twitched. Her heart stopped. She held her breath, waiting, but nothing else happened. Had she imagined it? The next day, she couldn't focus. The image of Damien's hand moving haunted her. The soft patter of rain against the window blended with the steady rhythm of Damien's breathing. The room was bathed in its usual silence, the kind of silence Arya had grown used to over the past few weeks. She sat in the chair beside his bed, a book open in her lap, though her mind was elsewhere. The doctor had said Damien could wake up at any time, but days had passed and he remained still. She sighed, reaching for the glass of water on the nightstand. And then she froze. His finger twitched. Her heart stopped. She stared at his hand, waiting for another sign. But nothing happened. She bit her lip. Did I imagine that? The next morning, she couldn't shake the uneasy feeling, and that night, as she sat by his bed reading, it happened again. His eyelashes fluttered. She shot to her feet, rushing out the door. "Get the doctor, now!" Within the hour, Dr. Whitmore arrived, accompanied by the entire Lancaster family. The once quiet room was now thick with tension. 1 second, 2 seconds. Then, Damien's eyelids slowly lifted. Arya held her breath. He blinked a few times, his unfocused gaze scanning the room before landing on her. She reached for his hand, voice trembling. "Damien?" He looked at her, those deep blue eyes searching, but empty. "Who are you?" he rasped. Arya's breath caught. The doctor confirmed what she had feared most. Damien had lost his memory. He didn't remember the accident, his family, and worst of all, he didn't remember her. The Lancasters, instead of acknowledging Arya, only breathed sighs of relief that Damien was awake. And as soon as the news spread, Celeste Bennett returned, tears glistening in her eyes, playing the role of the heartbroken fiancé, as if she had never abandoned him. From the moment Damien opened his eyes, Celeste wasted no time. She clung to him, tears streaming down her face, weaving tales of a passionate love they had shared. She painted a perfect story, a deep romance, a promised future, a life that should have been filled with happiness, if not for the accident. Arya stood quietly in the corner, pushed aside like an outsider. Damien had no reason to doubt Celeste. He remembered nothing, and when Celeste turned to Arya, her voice dripping with false sympathy, "Thank you for taking care of Damien while he was recovering, but now he has me." Arya didn't respond. She knew arguing wouldn't change anything. Instead of trying to force Damien to remember, she chose to stand by his side silently. In the days that followed, Arya continued to help him recover. She never spoke about the past, never pressured him to recall forgotten memories. She simply helped him move forward. Whenever Damien grew frustrated with the grueling physical therapy, Arya stood beside him, not pushing, not pitying, just present. Whenever he lashed out in irritation, struggling to remember things that should have been familiar, she listened, without judgment. And little by little, Damien started to trust her. One afternoon, as they walked through the garden, his first time outside since waking up, Damien suddenly asked, "Why don't you ever talk about the past?" Arya paused. She looked into his deep blue eyes, filled with too many questions. After a long silence, she softly replied, "Because it's not who you were that matters, but who you choose to be now." Damien didn't know how to respond, but that single sentence made him start questioning everything Celeste had told him. Arya couldn't let this end here. She knew Damien's accident hadn't been an accident, but the Lancaster family had buried the investigation not because they were guilty, but because reputation mattered more than truth. At first, when the crash happened, they had hired a private investigator, but when the evidence pointed toward someone within their own circle, they chose to stay silent. If Damien never woke up, the truth would remain buried forever. But now he was awake, and Arya wouldn't let the past be erased. For nights, she searched tirelessly, following financial trails and hidden reports. And then she found it. A large transaction made to an auto repair shop just days before the accident. The sender? Celeste Bennett. The garage sat on the outskirts of the city, hidden down a deserted street. The air reeked of oil and burning metal. The man behind the counter, a grizzled mechanic, eyed her warily. "What do you need?" Arya placed the documents on the counter. "I want to know who paid you this money." He glanced at the numbers, his expression shifting. "I don't know what you're talking about." Arya clenched her fists. It was Celeste Bennett, wasn't it? His jaw tightened, a moment of hesitation, then he exhaled. "I don't know who you are, lady, but you shouldn't get involved in this." "Celeste hired you to sabotage Damien's brakes?" Silence. Then finally, he nodded. "Yes." Arya's heart clenched. The next day, she confronted Celeste, slamming the evidence onto the table. Celeste merely smirked. "And what if I did?" she said, shrugging. "The Lancaster family has known for months. If they didn't do anything, what makes you think you can?" But the truth always found a way to surface. That night, during the grand celebration, Damien suddenly tensed. A sharp pain pierced through his temple. And then he remembered. He remembered Celeste standing in the distance, watching with a satisfied smile. Everything became clear. He stood, raising his glass. The room fell into silence. "I remember everything." He remembered everything. He remembered leaving the engagement party, the screech of his tires as he lost control, and most importantly, he remembered Celeste. She had been standing on the sidewalk, arms crossed, her eyes cold and unfeeling as she watched his car spiral out of control. No panic, no fear, just satisfaction. Slowly, Damien turned to face her, his voice raw with betrayal. "You did this," he said, each word heavy with anger. "You tried to kill me." Celeste stiffened, but only for a moment. Then she smirked, her voice dripping with amusement. "Oh, Damien." Her voice wavered between a smirk and desperation. "Don't you get it? Everything you own should have been mine. You were supposed to die." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Celeste's composure cracked. She whirled toward Victoria Lancaster, her voice rising. "You knew, didn't you? You all knew. And yet you stood there, pretending I was your perfect choice." The Lancaster family gasped in shock. Victoria Lancaster, Damien's mother, stepped forward, her voice ice cold. "Celeste, from this moment on, you are no longer part of this family. Get out." Celeste turned to her own parents, but they merely shook their heads in disappointment. "We have no daughter," her father said flatly. For the first time, fear flickered in Celeste's eyes. She had lost everything. After Celeste was gone, the atmosphere in the Lancaster estate shifted completely. No more whispers of doubt, no more cold stares. Arya continued to care for Damien, but this time, it wasn't out of duty. She helped him take slow, steady steps, patiently staying by his side whenever frustration took over. She listened not just to his words, but to everything he couldn't say. And Damien changed too. He began to notice the little things about her, the way she bit her lip when nervous, the way she gently squeezed his hand for encouragement, the way her eyes lit up when she spoke about books. Every time he looked at her, a strange sense of familiarity stirred inside him. Not from his lost memories, but from his heart. Even the household staff noticed. She's not an opportunist like we thought. She actually cares about him. Victoria Lancaster, who had once dismissed Arya, began to see her differently. One evening, as Arya helped Damien walk down the hall, Victoria watched them from afar. For the first time, she didn't see a helpless girl or an intruder, but a woman of quiet strength and unwavering devotion. And finally, she admitted to herself. She didn't just save Damien, she changed him. As the days passed, the love between Arya and Damien grew, not through grand gestures, but through small, quiet moments. They often sat together in the Lancaster estate's rose garden, Arya reading aloud to Damien, her soft voice blending with the breeze. Damien no longer listened just to the words on the page. He listened to her. One afternoon, as the golden sunlight filtered through the flowers, Arya was lost in her book, completely unaware of the way Damien's gaze lingered on her. And then, without warning, he reached out, gently tilting her chin up. She blinked in surprise, but before she could speak, his lips met hers. A soft, fleeting kiss, but one that sent her heart racing. Their love didn't come like a storm. It came like the morning sun, rising slowly but inevitably. A few weeks later, the Lancaster family hosted a grand party. No more doubts, no more distance. Under the warm glow of chandeliers, amidst laughter and celebration, Damien suddenly stood up and took Arya's hand in front of everyone. She gasped as he dropped to one knee. "Arya Bennett, for the first time, I am not bound by duty. For the first time, I am not being forced into anything. And for the first time in my life, I know exactly what I want." He opened a small velvet box, revealing a dazzling ring. "I want you. Will you marry me?" Tears welled in Arya's eyes, but there was no hesitation. "Yes." Applause erupted around them, and this time it was a blessing, not an obligation. The wedding day finally arrived. This time Damien stood at the end of the aisle waiting for Arya, not as an unconscious groom, not as part of a forced arrangement, but as a man eagerly waiting for the woman he loved. Arya walked down the aisle in a stunning white gown, her eyes shimmering with happiness. No fear, no uncertainty, only love. The ceremony was filled with warmth, surrounded by genuine blessings from family and friends, but the most touching moment came when Damien took Arya's hands and spoke from the heart. He gazed into her eyes, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. "Arya, I may never remember our past, but that doesn't matter anymore, because I will spend my life creating new memories with you. Thank you for standing by me when I was at my weakest. Thank you for believing in me when I couldn't even believe in myself. And most of all, thank you for loving me." Tears glistened in Arya's eyes, but they were tears of pure joy. As the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Damien wasted no time pulling her into a deep, passionate kiss. The room erupted in applause, petals rained down around them. And this time, as they walked hand in hand out of the chapel, they knew this wasn't just a wedding, it was a true beginning.